Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Friday live Q&A. I didn't even realize I'm a bit out of touch with even what the date is today. It's Friday, 13th of October, Friday 13, which some people would say is an unlucky day. I actually think 13 is one of my favorite and lucky numbers. So I don't subscribe to that 13 is an unlucky number, but it is Friday the 13th today. So, well, in Australia anyway. I know for some of you it's still October 12th. But if you are just tuning in, welcome to today's Friday Live. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Fiona Lukeis, or unfamiliar with my work. My name is Fiona Lukeis, and every Friday I go live answering any questions that you may have about relationships, about life, about anything and everything to do with that aspect of our lives, because relationships in my mind are the heart and soul of everything. And when we do them well, our entire lives transform, and the level of well-being, joy, connection, all of those things, that is what we're all looking for, explodes. And so, relationships don't need to be complicated. They don't need to be hard. They can be simple and, yes, easy. And there is another way of showing up in the world where you can actually create that. And I want you to feel empowered around this. I believe that we all need to have the kind of skills where we do relationships well, and anybody can have that skill. It's just one of those things in life. Being great at relationships is an essential life skill. It's one of those things that you really don't want to stick your head in the sand about. It's not one of those things that you want to ignore or buy into the premise that because of what happened in your past, you can't do them well, or you're not good at them, or you're not that kind of person. None of that is actually true, but it is something that we can find ourselves buying into, living out of, and then creating a pattern where that is exactly how it plays out in our lives. I have never, ever met anyone who can't do them well, if that's their intention and what they want, right? We are designed to do this stuff well. We're built for it. It's already built in, right? We come pre-built in with knowing this stuff and being able to do this stuff well, right? We really, really do. No exception to that. Hey, Daryl, you've got me up larger than life on your TV. Okay, awesome. So I'm imagining I'm a giant head right now. Okay, so that's awesome. Thanks, Daryl. Really nice to hear from you. I hope all is well with you. And obviously, anybody else who would like to say hi and let me know where you're listening from. I always love to know where people are. I just find, I really do. I will never get tired of the internet and being able to live stream on YouTube and Facebook, which is what I'm doing right now. So everyone in YouTube land, hello, if you're listening in from there, and everyone in Facebook land, if you're listening in from there, hello and welcome. Hey, Sarah, hi. Thanks for saying hi, honey. Really appreciate it. It's a grey, rainy day here in Melbourne. Just taking my dog for a walk in the rain, and I've got very wet feet. So spring is in the air, but very rainy and grey here. So wherever you are in the world, I hope the sun is shining for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to say hi and ask them below. That's what this is all about. Ask your questions. Hey, Mona. Hi, honey. Thanks for saying hi. Anyone else out there who wants to say hi? I know it takes a little while for the filter to go through that I am live. And, so if you do have a question, feel free, or you want to say hi. So I'm going to, I'll just play around here for a minute until a few more people are aware that I'm here. So if you do have a question or you want to say hi, ask it in the comments below. Now, I know that there are a lot of people. All right, hang on. I've got a few things coming here. Thanks, Karen. Hi, Fiona. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep gratitude for sharing this profound understanding. Your book, podcasts, and live sessions have been an eye-opening experience for me, and I'm eagerly anticipating my participation in your Relatable program. Awesome, Karen. That's so exciting. Welcome, welcome. I've come to realize that I was excessively self-righteous and judgmental. Me too. Just so you know, you're not alone. That was a big realization for me too, really, and actually very freeing. I cannot tell you I really just want to speak to that for 1 second. I know for some people, looking in this direction or looking at yourself can be scary because you think, what am I going to find out? right? And for some of us, if we've got a lot of judgmental thinking of ourselves, or we loop in things around in our head, looking in a direction where we may have to look at that can be really scary, because it's kind of like, I think for many people, whilst this is going around in my head and whilst I have this as background noise, I can kind of, I'm not really sure if it's true or if it's real. And I don't know if I want to know that, right? And I think and I truly understand that. I think that the joy, the relief, the lightheartedness about looking in the direction that I teach and looking in the direction of this understanding is you get to have realizations of yourself, but you do so without all the judgment of yourself, without all of the hammering yourself into the ground, because realizations are a different thing altogether to what judgment is. Okay. So realizations are this, yeah, that's it, Karen, freeing things. It's like it puts down this mental load. It's like, now I see that, but I see it in a way that is that is free from all of the I'm a terrible person, what's the matter with me, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, I need to fix myself, all of this stuff, right? You get to see this stuff about yourself, but you do so through a lens of gratitude, because it's like, now I know that, now I can do something about it, right? Now I've got a pathway forward, so that I'm just not constantly repeating, doing the same thing again and again and again. Sorry, that was my Google Calendar. I don't know why it does that. It's every time I turn it off, it still does that every time. So my apologies. But we get this freedom, and that's where the sense of empowerment comes from, because now you can see a pathway where you are able to take the lead, instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of your emotions or the mercy of your reactions or the mercy of somebody else's, right? And so there's no empowerment there. And so this is why I say learning how to do this stuff well, it's life-changing, because you do feel that sense of lightness. There's a sense of relief. There's a sense of, understanding. Now I know what's going on. Right. Now I have the gift of choice. Now I get to do something different, instead of constantly doing the same thing and not understanding what's going on. Why is it? And I get so many emails like this. No matter how hard I try, Fiona, the same thing keeps happening. Right? Why is that? I'm trying so hard, and my heart goes out to you guys who are trying, and the same thing is happening again and again and again. If you are in that pattern, that's because you haven't had the realization that you need yet, right? We create change via realization. It's the only way we create change. That's it, right? And when we have a realization, it illuminates something that we've never seen before, gives us the gift of choice, gives us a sense of empowerment, has us put down all of that massive mental load that gets in the way, that takes up all our precious bandwidth, and then has us do the same thing again and again, right? So I love that. I love that you've seen that for yourself, Karen. It's super, super cool. Constructing a distorted version of reality. Yeah, we're all doing it, right? We all do it. I want you to know this. This is the truth amongst every person on the planet. We are creating and constructing a distorted version of reality. This is true for everybody. Doesn't matter how much personal work you've done, doesn't matter how much therapy you've done, does not matter. That does not take that away. Everybody does it. Okay? Everybody. And you will continue to do so, by the way. That's not something you can personal development away. All right? It's just not. It's part of being human. Now, the more deeply you understand the human condition, the more deeply you understand our innate humanness, right? The more you work with what is rather than against it, the less frightened you become of the experience you're having. And, frightened people show up in a certain way. People who come from a place of understanding show up in a completely different way. All right. So, yes, this is an important thing to realize. And these are conversations we have in the Relatable program, right? All the time. We had a profound, fantastic conversation about this exact thing on Wednesday night. And I've had a number of my students email me, some of them who weren't on the call, saying, oh my goodness, Fiona, that call was amazing. It's just, I've had so many things land for me because of that call. It's just, right? And that's what it's all about. When something lands, another realization, another insight, again, it's like we just show up from a different place. We show up from a different level of understanding. We show up from a more connected, grounded, profound place without all of that massive overthinking that gets in the way of everything. So, yeah, okay. Awesome for you to be able to see that, Karen. So Karen's saying, I was excessively self-righteous and judgmental, constructing a distorted version of reality. And to compound matters, I shared information about my partner with family friends that I now regret and acknowledge. Good for you for being able to see that, honey, right? Can't change what you can't see. This is important for everybody. You cannot change what you cannot see. And until you see it, nothing will change. It's just that important. And it's just that black and white. But good for you for being able to see that, and I'm so thrilled that you're joining our relatable family. Truly, it is. We're a big family, and we're a family that now stretch all across the world, having this very profound conversation. So awesome! Congratulations. Hi, Trudy. Hey, thanks for listening in via YouTube. And you're in Winnipeg. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Hi, Mick. Thanks for my human condition. I wondered what was wrong with me. Nothing, right? We're just human. 29 degrees on the Gold Coast. Far out. You're so lucky, Rick. I love that. 29 degrees on the Gold Coast. I don't even know what the temperature is, but it's a long way from 29. Yeah, so freeing, Karen. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. And for anyone else who's joined the call or this live, please say hi. Let me know where you're listening from. I always love to know where people are in the world. And if you have a question, please share it in the comments below. All right, please. This is the time to get your questions answered. All right, it really, really is. If you've read my ebook and you've got some questions about that, or there's some things that you want clarity around, ask them. All right, this is what it's all about. Okay, so in saying that, let me get to a question I want to come back to, which just I think has a flavor with what was asked last week, but I know that this can be a real sticking point for people. So I want to revisit this. It's a slightly different question, but I do feel I answered it last week, or I spoke to it, I should say. I spoke to this last week, but I was re-looking at the question that came in. So it's a question that came in after I'd answered my question last week. But I know, and again, I know this is something that people have a lot of questions around. And so I want to speak to that as much as I can. So, hi, Fiona. Regarding people choosing to step back out of anger when someone else is hurting them, or that it only takes one person to be effective in turning the relationship around, can you speak to the thought that many people have in response to that, which is, if I just go to that peaceful place, or I refrain from being angry when someone else hurts me, where is the lesson for the person that hurt me? Okay, so I think this is an important question, and there's more to it that this person has asked, but I want to speak to this. First of all, you can only, and everything that I point to is not something that you can learn via your intellect. Okay? You just can't, because our intellect has way too many yeah buts, has way too many exceptions, has way too many objections. All right? Because our intellect is based on logic and reason. Right? What I point to, what I'm teaching, what I'm talking about goes beyond logic and reason. It's outside of the realms of logic and reason. Okay? And that's why it's so freeing for people, because we put down all of our yeah buts. We put down all of our exceptions. We put down all of the right, the wrong, the sides that we have around things. Okay? And it's only when you're able to put that stuff down that you're able to see things with fresh eyes. You're able to get a completely different perspective. You're able to see things from a more expansive point of view. People get without realizing it, I really want to say this, people can become very dogmatic about how they see the world and what they believe to be right and wrong and true and not true. And when we come from that place of dogma, and some of you might find dogma to be a very strong word, but really that's what it is. When we come from that place of dogma, it's very hard for us to see things with fresh eyes. We just become very reactive to our reality. We become very defensive to our reality, become very kind of narrow. Our point of view narrows, okay? And so the first thing I want to say is this question is coming from a place of what if, right? Rather than a place of I've done that and this is what I saw. Okay? I've done that and this is what I saw. Very different place. And so you cannot imagine that. You have to experience it, right? You have to experience it. So what I'm trying to say is you can't learn this unless you have actually experienced it. You learn this via experience, which is what enables you to create change in a moment of now. All right? Okay? You cannot so in other words, in order to answer this question, you need to go to that peaceful place. You need to be in a place of neutrality and see what makes sense to you in that moment, right? Until you've had that experience, your reality is not going to be a reflection of that experience. Okay? So right now, you're trying to imagine that and you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist from that place, right? You're trying to solve a problem that exists from here, which is this person needs to learn their lesson. I believe they need to learn a lesson. So we're not neutral when we're from that place, right? We're still in our dogma, okay? And so what I'm saying is go to that place, truly, authentically go to that place where you are neutral, where you've got nothing on it. And we have that capacity. Everybody does. Okay. Everybody has that capacity. No exception. Everybody has that capacity inside them, right? Where you are neutral and then see what makes sense to you from that place rather than I'm going to imagine what that would be like and the problem I may or may not be having from there. And now I'm going to try and solve it. See that? That's your intellect at work. And that is going to block you from that experience. You have to open yourself to that experience and truly have it and see what makes sense to you from there. So that's the first thing I want to say to that question. The other thing that I'm going to say, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, so stay with me, guys. Who says, and I want you to sit with what I'm saying, who says it's up to you to teach somebody else a lesson? That in and of itself is very arrogant. And I say this with love and kindness because I was one of the, I had a super massive amount of arrogance, okay, around this stuff. And I used to look at things from that place. Who says it is up to you to teach that person a lesson? Okay. I'd really just like you to sit with that because I don't know how true that is. Whenever we think someone has to learn a lesson, we're coming from judgment. We're coming from dogma. We are going to keep coming back to the same place, and that person is going to be in reaction to that. All right? They will, because they can feel your judgment. They can feel your and this is just a place that we go to when we're coming from there. They can feel your self-righteousness. They can just feel it, okay? It's in your energy. Even if you're not saying the words, they can feel it energetically. Remember, we are energetic beings. We lead with our energy. We interact energetically before we do anything else. And our energy is our biggest blind spot. As Karen just shared before, this is what she's realized, right? So if you're not aware of these things, you think you're coming from a helpful place, but often it's dogma and often it's arrogance, unintentional. Please understand there's an innocence in us all, but it creates this friction. People who are neutral and are heartfelt don't create friction. You can still have the conversation with a person about what it is that's bothering you, but you cannot do it. Okay. You've got to be heartfelt. You can't be heartfelt if you think you need to teach someone a lesson. That's not heartfelt. All right. You need to really know this, guys. Okay. There's nothing heartfelt about that. And so then this person goes on to say, when therapists encourage people to do this so that we don't suffer, it's never a good enough reason just because we want the other person to rehabilitate too. Now, obviously, I'm not teaching you to not get angry so you don't suffer. There's so much more going on in what I'm teaching here, okay? I'm teaching you, there's just so much more going on than that. I appreciate that we want to create change, but if you believe someone needs fixing, and the word rehabilitate implies that, right? If you think someone needs to learn a lesson, right? you're going to be coming from that place of me versus you, right versus wrong. Okay. You cannot create change, the kind of change you want to create from that place. You cannot. All right. Because that's not love. That's not loving. This is why we say love is the most powerful force in the world. You can still have the conversation you need to have. You can still say it. You can. But you've got to be clean. And this is where people fall down all the time. We get very justified and we get very self-righteous. And then from there, we create havoc. Okay. Even if our intentions are right, even if our intentions are good, and people do have good intentions. All right. We don't want them to get away with it. See that? See, see that? I really want you to hear the language here. I don't want you to get away with it. See what it implies? There's so much implication in that. All right. And when you come from that space, you're going to keep creating friction. You've got to see this differently. You've got to be able to look at something through a neutral lens to really find the truth of what's going on here. Otherwise, it's just your reality versus somebody else's. And from that place, you can't achieve anything. You get no traction from that place. None. Right? It just becomes horse trading, or what I call emotional ping pong. Reality versus reality. You don't get, there's no traction there. I'm a mediator, so I don't struggle with this, and I'm always willing to go to that place when someone is hurting me. But my husband and so many other people I love, as well as people in general, feel as though they are letting someone off the hook if they agree to do as you suggest. I've heard so many people say this. What if a spouse is saying horrible things or being verbally abusive and not just having healthy anger, all because their spouse is bringing up a subject that they would like to address or work on, but the one that is the rageful spouse simply doesn't want to talk about it? Well, I guess in those sort of situations, um, okay, you absolutely need to know where you are first. And a lot of people are bringing up something when they themselves are not clean, when they're loaded, when they're self-righteous, when, all right, they just are. This is just the way, where they're being really dogmatic, etc. You won't create change there. And a lot of people are bringing up conversations where they have no permission to do so. All right. If you don't have permission with the other person, you can't go there. So a lot of people bring up conversations where there's no permission and where they're loaded. Now, if someone else is being rageful and difficult, then you just got to stop the conversation. You can't keep pushing into that energy. You just got to stop and then come back at another time, right? But that's no reason for you to then join in, right? We run with these things and we tend to build ourselves up into a position of like meeting someone where they're at, and it just becomes explosion versus explosion. It just becomes rage versus rage, judgment versus judgment. It just becomes this, all right? And it just doesn't have to be that way. It just doesn't. There's a whole other way of showing up where you don't feel like you're compromising yourself, where you're not losing anything, but you are just bringing something completely different to the table, and you're well aware of what you're doing and what you're creating, and you're doing it from a very empowered place. All right. This is entirely possible. I teach this to people all the time, and it's possible for anybody. Okay. So you don't have to resign yourself to walking on eggshells. Absolutely not. I know it looks that way. But if you've resigned yourself to walking on eggshells, that's just, you just understand that's fear meeting fear, insecurity meeting insecurity. And when one of you comes from that place where you are calm, where you are heartfelt, where you are neutral, where you are curious, where you're bringing something completely, honestly, authentically different to the table, it does have an impact on the other person. It just does, because that person's mental load starts to fall away. They don't have to be so defensive. Is it going to happen straight away? Possibly not. If you are someone who hasn't got any goodwill, where you do not have a history of dealing with conflict well, you can start doing that. And of course, it just takes a little bit of time and patience. But when you are empowered, okay, when you are empowered, you are able to bring that to the table consistently, authentically, and in such a way where the other person starts to trust in it. This is everything that I teach. And it is such an amazing feeling when you can do that. Amazing. My students say this to me all the time. It is so amazing for me, Fiona, that I'm able to bring this when someone else is not like I'm able to bring this to the table, and I'm not compromising myself. I'm not none of that. It's a completely different, we're talking about a different level here. All right? It's very, very empowering. And then from there, then you can make your own decisions. If you've done that consistently, honestly, consistently, and a lot of people will say to me, I have when they haven't, because they don't know the difference, right? Then you can make your decisions about where you want to go from there. Okay. Wisdom. Hey, I'm just going to go back to some of the questions here. Feel free if you've got a question or something you want to ask about what I'm saying, because I know it can be a really touchy subject for people. Okay, because there's so much uh, misleading information around this, around boundaries, around setting them, around where they come from. Don't get me wrong. I think boundaries are important, but if you're setting boundaries from an angry, defensive, like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't actually create what it is that you're looking for. When you set boundaries from a clear mind, that's a completely different thing than when we set a boundary from anger and defensiveness and all the other things. All right. It's a totally different, it has a totally different impact. Okay. Wisdom, an intuitive form of intellect and logic. Yes, it is. And one that highlights things that we cannot see. And we all need that. We need fresh thinking, not thinking that, not all that recycled stuff that we go round and round like a washing machine in our head. That's not fresh thinking. All right. Fresh thinking is outside of wisdom, is outside of logic and intellect. Sarah, that's a huge idea and I finally get it. Wow. Awesome. Good for you, honey. Awesome. Mary, hey, Mary Lou. Hello, darling. Has anyone told you it's me? Yes, that's right. So freeing when we can see that in ourselves. Karen, I'm now so aware of my energy before I enter a room that if it's flavored, I don't enter. Good for you. Beautiful. Love it. It's so helpful, isn't it? So helpful when to know when to zip it and when not to. I realized I've been so emotional and not calm lately that all I brought to the convo was friction and made him shut down more. That's right. Yeah. Is this person in an abusive relationship? Staying in one and allowing the abuse doesn't help the abuser. Not necessarily, Trudy. Like, I think I understand what you're saying. And you know, it's a whole different level of conversation. But again, right? Again, I don't want to confuse that with this. All right, it's a whole different subject. And if you want me to talk about abusive relationships and handling them, I fled a domestic violent relationship with 2 little kids. 20 years ago. So I get it. I've been there, done that. So I understand this, what that is, but I don't believe that's what this person's talking about. You can still have a conversation with someone who gets defensive and angry. That doesn't necessarily constitute the fact that you're in an abusive relationship. It can be a reflection of the fact that there's not a lot of goodwill, that people are feeling attacked, that they don't feel safe, and so they go into defense mode. And there are ways in which you can navigate that. An abusive relationship, and just want to speak to that just for 1 second, but I don't want to get into a whole thing to muddy the waters of what I'm talking about. An abusive relationship is one really where you're in a relationship with someone who is projecting the entire time and is not willing to take a look at what they're bringing to the table. All right, they're not willing to take a look at what they're bringing to the table, and there's just a lot of anger, violence, upset, and there's no other shade of that, right? And that's a whole other conversation. There are people who can get angry when you try and talk to them. There are people who get defensive when you try and talk to them. That doesn't necessarily constitute abuse. It's just someone who's frightened, who doesn't know what to do, and whether maybe the relationship just keeps ending in the same space because people just keep showing up from the same space. All right. So let's be mindful of that. I appreciate people need to stay safe and all of those sorts of things, but I think we're also, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, Trudy, at all. Okay, I appreciate your comment, but we're also very quick to label things, and when we do that, we miss the opportunity to learn. Okay, when we label things, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, they're doing this, oh, there's no curiosity. And we need a lot more curiosity. I've definitely had people come to Relatable and or become private clients of mine who think they're in a relationship with a narcissist, who think that that they're experiencing certain things, and then actually are able to completely change that. And it's not a narcissistic relationship; it's just a relationship with no goodwill, very little understanding, and people just playing emotional ping pong with each other. And they've been stuck in that dynamic for a very, 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 very long time. Okay. And so then our frailties come out and the worst of us come out. And so there are definitely people in dynamics where all that's happening is the worst of them are on display with each other. That doesn't make that person an abuser, and it doesn't necessarily make that person narcissistic. It's just a very dysfunctional pattern that they're in, but it can be changed if that's what people want. All right, it can be. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm not trying to minimize that. But I think that's a whole other conversation. All right. But I do appreciate your comment, Trudy. I really do. Mick, I never thought of it as having permission to discuss a feeling. Yeah, absolutely. You know, my daughter and I had a moment. My 15-year-old daughter and I had a moment about 10 days ago, and we had a blow up, and I was very, very upset about it, as was she. And I went to speak to her the next day, and I said, "Are you okay if we talk about this?" Right? I was asking permission, and she said to me, "I'm not there yet, Mum. I'm not ready." And I went, "No worries. Let me know when you are." Okay. And the next day she came up to me and she said, "Yeah, I think I'm ready to talk about it." And I said, "Cool. Okay." And we had a chat. Now, totally different conversation than me coming in saying, "We need to talk about what happened yesterday. Your behavior was unacceptable," because I was feeling that way. There's no doubt about it. "I can't believe you spoke to me." Da 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 da, right? No permission. What would have happened? What would have happened? I go in there. I fully believe she needs to learn a lesson. I fully believe as her parent that I need to teach her. Da 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 da. I go in all fired up. I go in having that conversation. What do you think is going to happen? We would have just had another yelling match. She would have told me to leave her alone. She would have, like, do you know what I mean? Like, we would have got no traction in that conversation whatsoever. But because I asked for permission and I accepted that she wasn't quite ready, we spoke when she was, and we were able to have a conversation where we're able to have a meeting of the minds instead of me just going in, hammer and tongs, guns blazing. You need to understand. You need to learn. How dare you do it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that achieves nothing, gets us nowhere. And all that happens is we don't talk again. I feel awful. She feels awful. There's no connection. And then, this is how people do this stuff again and again and again and again and get absolutely nowhere with each other, right? Nowhere. Like, it makes no sense to me. It used to, don't get me wrong, that showing up like that used to make a lot of sense, because I used to have the mindset of, you need to understand, you need to learn, that's unacceptable, blah, 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 right? But really, when I go in like that, it achieves nothing. And we do not get to where we actually really want to go. And I see this go on again and again and again. Hence why, right, I'm a huge advocate in teaching you this. You got to understand the human condition. And I use the word human condition because there are just things that we are subject to that are across the board true for everybody. Okay? And that have nothing to do with personality types, that have nothing to do with love languages, that have nothing to do with masculine and feminine energy, that have nothing to do with gender, that have nothing to do, that are just true of all human beings, regardless of culture, regardless of race, regardless, right? They are just across the board true. Now, when you understand that, we calm down because we know what's going on. We're less freaked out by our experience. We're less freaked out by somebody else's. When we are not frightened, we've got all this emotional bandwidth. We've got capacity to show up through the lens of understanding, kindness, curiosity, neutrality, connection. We listen from a completely different space, not from a space of trying to prove a point. So many people are listening and engaging from that place. I need to prove a point. You need to learn this. You need to, right? This is how most of us listen. You will get nowhere if that's what you're doing. Nowhere. You will get no traction. And this is why if you're in a dynamic where it's one step forward, three steps back, that is essentially why. And that is why when people understand this, one person can create change because now one of you is not showing up from that frightened place. One of you is coming from a completely different space. Your energy is changing and it does have a profound impact on people. It truly does. I've seen this again and again and again and again. Okay. Now, does it mean that every single relationship will work out? I don't know. That's the great unknown. But it does mean that if you ever do get to that point, you will know deep within your soul that you have done everything you could, that you've shown up in a completely different space that's given this thing the best chance possible. Very few people can say that. Well, at least in my experience. That's very freeing if what it means is that you part ways, because you part ways with this sense of calm, groundedness, and knowing. And there are so few people who can say that. And so then even when they do part ways, there's so much anger and unresolved issues and emotion that they struggle to move forward and then create something different in their next relationship, right? Because they don't have the emotional freedom that we need in order to have that fresh connection, in order to show up clean without all the baggage from the past that I see people drag around, whether they've not resolved it in that relationship, they drag it around and they plonk it into the next one. And then they say things to me like, yeah, but I was hurt really badly, so I have to be careful. Yeah, but this happened last time, so I can't let that happen again. And if this is you, I understand, like I get it. I truly do. I was very much like that when I fled that relationship all those years ago. I was so on guard. I'm just very lucky that my husband was very patient with me because I was just so on guard. I kept waiting for him to do what had happened to me before. I was, you know what I mean? I didn't have emotional freedom. I was not neutral and calm within myself. I was totally on guard. I was waiting for it. I was, and it was only when my marriage to my husband, I've only been married the once. That was a de facto relationship before because I never thought I even wanted to get married. I always used to say to that person, don't ask me, I'm not into it. I didn't realize it was because I wasn't actually into them. But when my husband and I hit problems, it is this understanding that I teach you now, I was lucky enough to come across that has changed things because I was a very shut down, angry, on guard, being careful not to repeat the past, yet bringing it into the now all the time. That was me. Okay, very reactionary, very brittle, and very emotional, and I'm very self-righteous, all of those things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not this horrible, mean person, but these are the things that I couldn't see inside myself because I'd done lots and lots of courses and programs. And you can develop a bit of personal development arrogance if you've done a lot of that stuff because you can kind of push yourself into this false reality that you've sorted all your stuff out, that you're all good. And that's kind of where I was, right? So I was pretty blind. This opened my mind, my heart to so many things that I'd never, ever understood before or seen before or learned before. And it just means that, as of the 22nd of October in this month, my husband will be 19 and I will be 19 years married. And our goodwill is off the charts. Our level of connection is off the charts and authentically truly is. Doesn't mean we don't argue. We do. Doesn't mean we don't have our moments. We do. But we get over things. We truly get over things and we put things down and we don't carry anything. We don't. And if we need to talk about stuff, we do. But it is, and we always get what we need. And it's not that I'm compromising myself or I'm sticking my head in the sand or I'm not saying those things, but I do so from the space that I've been talking to you about because it is so deeply ingrained in my bones, okay, that what the space I show up from is neutral, is clean, that it's not loaded. And I'm not saying I do that 100% of the time. I'm not even aiming for it. But it has created such a different dynamic between the two of us. It is like greatest thing that's ever happened to me. So I hope that this is helpful to you guys. I speak to this with so much passion, as you can hear it in my voice, because I see what it's done for me so many of my students, my clients, the sense of freedom that people have, and then what that does for the people around them. Like, this isn't just about you. You really need to understand that. This is not just about you. All right? You have the capacity to influence. You do. We do. We're so much more powerful than we understand. We are so much more powerful. I wish every person on the planet knew that. I get very emotional because I'm like, I want everyone to know this. All right? You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. That you are not missing something. It just, some of us are just lacking understanding and awareness. Awareness is the gift that keeps on giving, guys. And when you have the gift of awareness, you show up differently, and your energy ripples out to the people around you. I wish that I could make you all see that, how powerful you are and how much capacity you have to influence the people around you, your kids, your friends, your in-laws, the person that you pass down the street because you give them a sense of hope. We are connected, ingrained with each other far more than we understand. Okay? And so when people see this, it's like, I'm noticing the changes in the people around me. People are noticing the changes in me, and they're asking me different questions, and they're showing up differently around me. And there's so much more calmness in my family, in my extended family, with my work colleagues. I hear this stuff all of the time because that's the power one person has. Don't ever doubt that. Never, ever, ever doubt that. Please, because when you do, you dim your light. Okay? We need more people turning the lights up. Okay? More than ever right now, that's what we need. And if I was to be completely frank with you guys, right? And totally transparent, that's what I'm up about. Is helping people turn their light up so they can turn the light up for the people around them. And I do it through the lens of relationships because I know this is the interconnectedness of all things, right? So that's why I get so emotional about it and so passionate about it. And I could talk about this literally all day long and never get tired of it because I know the stakes are very high. I know what's possible, and I know the power that you all have. And so that's what's on my mind when I speak every single time. And I'm never going to give up on it. And I'm never going to give up on you. Getting very emotional. Okay, because this stuff matters. All right. Oh, hello. It's my sibling, Noah. Hello, beautiful. Hello. Oh, all right. I don't know why I've gotten so emotional today, but there you go. What about when the other person is emotionally manipulating and they don't see that they are? All right. Well, you got to change the lens in which you see that. All right. I always say to people, and I talk about this a lot in Relatable and on our calls, that you have to see the innocence in people. There is an innocence in people. All right. And when you have this understanding, you see it. You do. You just automatically start to see it in people. So you don't look at someone as though they're emotionally and manipulating you, right? You see it completely differently. And so you speak to something else in that person. You've got to understand this. This is how you can bypass another person's intellect, because you're literally speaking to something else that cuts through all of their insecurities and their defensiveness. And so they kind of put that stuff down and they don't even know they're doing it. That's the power a person has. That's the power you have. Okay? But if you look at someone as they're emotionally manipulating, they're doing this, they're doing that, you don't have access to that power. It just limits that. All right? I hope that helps. Because, yeah, there's a lot of things that we do that we don't see that we do. We are our own biggest blind spot. Okay? We are our own biggest blind spot. Hey, Lise. Hello, darling. Sending you love, as always. So lovely to see you here. Alexander. Hello. Thank you, Alexander. Appreciate that. You're welcome, Sarah. Seraphine, can turning up like this help someone who's overstressed and shut down? Yep. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yes. I in fact, this I see all the time, the change in that. Oh my God. Yes. Christy, thank you so much for your passion. You are making a difference. Thank you. Appreciate your words, Christy. I do appreciate that. Fee, I consider myself so fortunate and privileged to have you now as a part of my life, your wisdom and genuine passion. Thank you, Mick. I appreciate your words. I really do, Mick. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone who shows up to these lives I really do, and asks me questions, because it's not an easy thing to do. And this is an emotional topic for so many, and it causes so much pain and suffering around the world. I just want you to know it doesn't have to be that way. There is a whole other way of being around all of this. There truly, truly is. And that's what I want everyone to know. Hey, Maz. Hello. I was actually thinking about you this week. I really was. I'm not joking, Maz. You were on my mind. I was thinking about you and wondering how you are. All right, everybody. Wow, oh my God, I've been talking for 45 minutes. Whoa. Okay. It's a very long time. Look, thank you all so much for being here. I hope this is helpful. If you have a question that you want me to answer, please send it in to Friday Live Q&A, and I will answer it for you next Friday. If you want me to answer it anonymously, generally I do anyway. I'm more than happy to do that for you. If you want to know more about my Relatable program, you can book a time to have a chat with me. I will put a link where you can book a chat, find out more about it, see if it's a fit for you, etc. More than happy to have that conversation so you can understand what's involved. It's an amazing program, and we have the most incredible conversations that are such a privilege to have. I just love teaching this so much. Trudy, thanks, Fiona. Love your passion. The world and the world leaders, especially in Israel, yep, and Palestine, need this light and understanding. Yeah, we do. We need more people shining their light, truly. Thanks so much, Mick. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you next Friday. And yeah, send your questions through and I'll do my best to answer them. Take care now. Ciao.